Oh, this is another quick hit, just in terms of going with what I like, I suppose. I basically listened through the first book of this Galaxy Outlaws, the complete Black Ocean Mobius missions, right? Alright. But a lot of the reviews keep saying, oh, this is just like Firefly. This is just like Firefly. It's like, no, people, it's not like Firefly. It's a space fantasy. The only thing I see that's similar to Firefly's setup is they're on a kind of like a rickety ship and they're a mismatched kind of crew of misfits, but that's where the similarities basically end. That's why I'm not gonna really enjoy doing like, oh, this is just like Brand meets Brand. It's like, no, 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 I'm not gonna do that. He has an interesting backdrop of magic versus tech in a similar theme of what Arcanum did, where like if the person is too magical and they get near certain kinds of tech, it screws up, and vice versa. So that's how that kind of ties in with how Arcanum's system worked. If you have somebody that's very tech heavy, their systems will be more bound to react badly to magic, unless you combine things to where the magical person can exist on the ship. Now, one thing with this particular series is the wizards can help people go through a certain version of FTL, which is like different layers that even what I do with Upload Protocol, where there's different kinds of FTL based on what that ship or person's made from. So in this book series, from the looks of it, the wizards help them go through certain bands of FTL to where they can travel faster than the standard jump light engines that most tech-based ships have. So there's like a give and take based on how this guy set up his overall setting and the overall rules from what I can see so far. The basic plot of book one is like figuring out what Esper and the kid she's with is really up to. There's a couple red herrings to lead you to believe that Esper is hiding something. She is, but it's not what you think. Some of the reviews said Esper was more holier than thou, and they hated that, and basically she ruined the books. Me personally, I don't mind a character like Esper. She's very staunch in her faith. She thinks the some of the capabilities she has is in direct contradiction to that faith. She does have a basic backstory of where, like a controlling mother, kind of like, Snow White and the wicked stepmother type of deal. That, like, it had that relationship had that kind of vibe where whatever Esper did, it really wasn't good enough for Mommy Dearest, and then eventually the mom wanted her to go through, like, personality warping or whatnot, and it's just like, ooh. So Esper's setup is kind of like she was a doll for somebody else to, like, basically play around with in terms of looks, what the mom wanted, different voice. Oh, this isn't good enough. Change her musculature, change her bone structure, make her face look more like this. And most sci-fi has done some element of that. Like, you can even look at the whole Miranda Lawson setup. Like, it's a similar idea there, trying the parent trying to mold the kid or mold their child, once they reach a certain age to try to be like, you're going to be this kind of level of perfection or whatnot. And most of the characters come off as like standoffish at first, but they're each kind of like banded together through, various trials and tribulations and whatnot. But they aren't, even though they kind of come off as like, oh, this is gray morality. It's like, no. Even though he puts outlaw in the thing, it's mainly, I guess, to cater to a certain audience, I suppose. But to me, most of these characters did have their positive moments. Of all of them, yes, I imagine people who don't like stark black and white mentality would hate Esper. But Esper has very clear, like, what she considers morally bad versus morally good. And that's what I appreciate about that character. It's like, yes, you're in a more gritty setting, but she's there to remind people, like, hey, even if you have to kill these guys, it's also, how shall we put it, barbaric. And it's fine to have a character that's like that, but not every character type's going to appeal to every person. And as a writer, you don't have to do that. As a writer, you have to decide, do you want to cater more towards whatever the more popular tools and tropes are? Or do you want to do mostly passion project? Do you want to make it more of a hybrid output? It's entirely up to you. All I know is this series had enough cues going for it where it's like it introduced a mystery every chapter, and while it didn't solve all the mysteries every chapter, it did just enough to where I was interested enough to seeing where the story went. So yeah, bravo book one. You managed to get my interest, and I'll likely listen to more of it later. But not everything is Firefly. Ugh. See, oh, but everybody knows about my whole stick with that. It's like, Brand meets Brand. It's just like Brand. Do you remember Brand? Ugh. Just, I would say, give this series a try on its own merits. It has a mixture of space opera with fantasy, like space fantasy, that I've been looking for in books, where it doesn't have a hard sci-fi bent at all. Don't expect actual physics in this book. Don't expect any of our real world physics in this book at all, or in this series. But it is consistent, which is what's important.